The stars had always fascinated humanity. For centuries, Earth's people had looked up at the night sky, wondering what lay beyond. When the day finally came, when the first human ships broke through the outer atmosphere and ventured into the vast expanse of space, humanity's dream of exploring the stars became reality. The United Earth Fleet, a symbol of human strength and unity, had just entered the galactic center. The Earth had united under a single banner, eager to join the greater galactic community. The fleet was both humble and bold, with ships carrying humans who believed in peaceful exploration. They were not conquerors, nor were they arrogant, but their arrival would soon shake the galaxy. The first contact with the Zorvax came unexpectedly. The Zorvax were a species that had dominated their sector for thousands of years. Their strength was legendary, and their technology was advanced beyond anything humanity could have imagined. They were known across the galaxy as the top predators, the most feared beings in the cosmos. Their towering, muscular bodies and sharp, keen senses made them nearly unstoppable. No other species dared challenge them. When the United Earth Fleet entered Zorvax space, their arrival was met with both curiosity and a cold, calculating stare. The Zorvax had never encountered a species like humanity before. The humans were small in comparison, fragile even, and yet their ships held advanced technology. It was clear the humans were no ordinary species. A meeting was arranged between the leaders of Earth and the representatives of the Zorvax. The humans, eager to make a good impression, arrived at the appointed station, a massive structure that hovered above a planet known for its violent storms and treacherous landscapes. This space station was where the most influential races of the galaxy often met. It was a place of diplomacy, but also, for some, a place to size up newcomers. The Zorvax representatives were tall, imposing figures. Their skin was thick, like armor, and their eyes gleamed with a fierce intelligence. When they looked at the humans, they did not see potential allies. They saw creatures that had survived their homeworlds, but were still far from the Zorvax's level of power. The humans, on the other hand, saw the Zorvax as both fascinating and terrifying. They knew the reputation of the Zorvax as apex predators, but they had something else in mind: curiosity. The humans spoke first. They had brought gifts, small, simple items, meant to symbolize their peaceful intentions. But it wasn't the gifts that caught the attention of the Zorvax representatives. It was a comment made casually, almost without thought. A human diplomat, a woman named Lena, spoke of Earth's most curious custom. She spoke of how, on Earth, humans had a tradition of eating what other species considered the most dangerous predators as part of their culture. To the Zorvax, the idea was not only strange but deeply offensive. They prided themselves on their position as the galaxy's top predators, and the thought that a lesser species would consume creatures like the ones they ruled over was an insult. Lena's words hung in the air for a moment, thick with tension. The Zorvax leader, a towering figure named Vorak, tilted his head, his eyes narrowing. "Are you suggesting that you consume creatures like the Rathar, the Kavorn, or the Wygros?" His voice was deep and carried a hint of disbelief. Lena's smile didn't falter. "Yes," she replied simply. "Humans have a long history of eating apex predators. It is a tradition, a way to honor their strength." There was a long silence. The Zorvax leader, Vorak, exchanged a glance with his advisors. They were clearly unsettled. The idea of humans consuming such creatures was unimaginable to them. To the Zorvax, these creatures were untouchable, a symbol of their own dominance. For a species like humanity to eat them seemed absurd. It was as if the humans were challenging the very order of the galaxy. Another human diplomat, a man named Marcus, spoke up. "It's more than just eating, though. It's about respect. We don't hunt these creatures out of malice. We honor them by showing we can survive, even thrive, in their presence." Vorak's lips curled into a smile, though it was more of a sneer. "Your customs are strange, human, But perhaps you underestimate the power of the creatures you claim to consume. Lena's eyes sparkled with amusement. We don't underestimate them. We just respect them enough to know how to defeat them. The conversation quickly moved past this strange topic, but it was clear that the Zorvacs were intrigued. They had seen many species, but they had never encountered one that could so casually speak of taking on the greatest predators the galaxy had ever known. The Zorvacs had their doubts, but there was a part of them that couldn't help but wonder. Was it possible that these small, seemingly fragile humans had a strength they had yet to understand? The meeting ended without any major decisions, but the seed of curiosity had been planted. Over the coming weeks, the Zorvacs would be watching the humans closely, learning more about their strange ways. What had started as a simple conversation about food had grown into something far more interesting. The galaxy would soon learn that the humans, though small in stature, had an iron will, and they were not a species to be underestimated. The galaxy was abuzz with whispers about humans. Their strange customs, especially their habit of eating the universe's most fearsome creatures, had sparked intense curiosity among countless species, and as the weeks passed, word spread faster than anyone could have imagined. The humans, who were once seen as fragile and insignificant, now had the attention of the most powerful races in the galaxy. They had done something that few would have dared. They had confronted and consumed apex predators, creatures that others would consider gods in their own right. The humans, eager to prove their reputation, decided it was time for a grand demonstration. The galaxy needed to see this strange tradition in person. And so, a grand event was arranged. A Feast of the Hunter, to showcase humanity's unique custom. The location would be a space station known as the Celestial Summit, a massive structure that floated in the orbit of Valtros, a planet notorious for its violent storms and savage wildlife. This space station was known for hosting the most prestigious and powerful leaders of the galaxy. If there was one place where all eyes would be, it was here. The invitation was sent out to every major species in the galaxy. The Zorvacs, of course, were included, though their leaders were skeptical. They couldn't fathom why anyone would risk their lives to consume creatures that had ruled their worlds for eons. The idea of eating such predators felt like an insult to them, but their curiosity pushed them to attend. After all, how could anyone turn down a chance to witness such a strange human tradition in person? As the day of the feast approached, excitement and tension grew. The space station was transformed into a lavish banquet hall, filled with towering tables and golden cutlery. There were flags and banners of every color, representing the many different species attending the event. But it wasn't the decoration that had everyone talking. It was the guest of honor. The Rathar, the largest and most terrifying predator in the galaxy, had been brought to the station. Its massive, glowing eyes glared from behind a protective shield as it was slowly brought into the center of the hall. The Rathar was known for its brute strength and razor-sharp claws. Its very presence in the hall sent a shiver down the spines of all who saw it. To the Zorvacs and others who had gathered, the Rathar was a living legend, a beast of unimaginable power. To them, it was a creature that could never be defeated. But for the humans, it was simply dinner. The doors opened, and the human delegation stepped into the hall, their steps confident and steady. Lena, the same diplomat who had first mentioned the human tradition to the Zorvacs, led the group. She smiled warmly as she addressed the gathered crowd. "Welcome to the Feast of the Hunter," she said, her voice calm and inviting. "Tonight, we honor the creatures that have shaped our history. The Rathar is a legendary predator, and we are grateful for the strength it represents." The other species were unsure how to react. The sight of the Rathar, still standing in its immense power, left many of them speechless. To think that these humans would eat such a creature seemed unthinkable. The Zorvacs, especially, looked on with narrowed eyes, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to back down from the challenge. Lena turned to the massive creature, her expression one of calm respect. The Rathar's eyes glowed fiercely as it looked back at her. But she didn't flinch. It was as if she understood something the others didn't. The Rathar, despite its size and strength, was just another animal to be respected and honored. The humans, with their sharp knives and skilled hands, began to prepare the Rathar. The other species watched in stunned silence as the humans cut into the creature, carefully removing the meat from its massive body. It was a spectacle unlike anything they had ever seen. The humans worked together, showing their unity and precision as they turned the predator into a meal. Finally, the meal was ready. The humans began to serve the roasted Rathar meat, presenting it on beautiful silver platters. The smell was intoxicating, rich and savory, filling the air with the scent of the cooked meat. For many, it was a moment of wonder. They had heard stories of humanity's strange customs, but to see it firsthand was something else entirely. Lina addressed the crowd again, her voice carrying a quiet power. "It is not just about the hunt," she said. "It is about survival, about learning from the creatures that challenge us. Every predator we face teaches us something, and every victory we achieve over them is a victory over our own limitations." The Zorvax leaders, though still unsettled by the sight, couldn't deny the calm confidence in Lina's words. They had never considered eating their prey as a way to honor them, but the humans had somehow made it seem almost respectful. It was as if, by consuming such a creature, they were showing that they had conquered their fear of it. The feast continued, and the guests, though hesitant at first, began to sample the Rathar meat. Their initial hesitation faded with each bite. To their surprise, the meat was tender and flavorful, unlike anything they had ever tasted. There was a strange satisfaction in the act of consuming a creature that had once been a symbol of fear. It was a reminder that no matter how strong or intimidating something might seem, it could always be overcome. As the night went on, the mood shifted. The tension that had filled the room earlier was replaced by a sense of awe. The humans had done something no one had expected. They had taken what was once seen as an unstoppable force and turned it into a meal. The galaxy would never look at them the same way again. And for the humans, this feast was not just about food. It was a statement, a declaration that no matter the size of the beast, no matter how powerful the predator, humanity would rise to face it and prevail. After the feast, the name of humanity spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Feast of the Hunter had left an indelible impression on every species that attended. Even the most powerful races in the galaxy, like the Zorvax, were unable to ignore the humans' audacity and strength. To consume the Rathar, the most feared predator, was one thing, but to do it with such respect, such ease, was something none could forget. The humans had proven they were no ordinary species. Not long after the feast, a new challenge emerged, an invitation to a galactic tournament. It was a yearly event where the most powerful and skilled warriors from different species came together to compete. The tournament was held on the neutral planet of Xoreth, a place where the rules of combat were strict, and no one could claim an unfair advantage. There, warriors would face one another in a series of tests, from hand-to-hand combat to strategic battles on difficult terrain. The invitation was extended to Earth. The Zorvax, who had watched the humans with growing interest, were the first to issue the challenge. They did not believe that humans could defeat the best of the galaxy in combat, but they were curious. And so, they invited the humans to prove themselves in a tournament where only the strongest survived. The human leaders did not hesitate. Earth had always prided itself on its ability to adapt, to rise above the odds. Their fighters weren't necessarily the strongest, but they were clever, resourceful, and quick to learn. They accepted the challenge, not because they sought glory, but because they wanted to show the galaxy that their strength came from more than just size or power. It came from the human spirit. The day of the tournament arrived, and the arena on Xoreth was filled with spectators from all over the galaxy. Species of every shape and size gathered to watch. The Zorvax were there, towering over the others, their dark eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and arrogance. Other species, like the Covorn, with their chitinous armor and deadly mandibles, and the Vekari, a race of agile, feathered creatures, were also in attendance. The air was thick with tension as the crowd eagerly awaited the first match. When the humans stepped onto the arena, there was a noticeable shift in the atmosphere. Despite their small size, they carried themselves with confidence. They were not here to win through brute strength. They were here to win with intelligence, tactics, and teamwork. The galaxy had expected them to fail, but the humans were about to show them how they had survived for so long on their homeworld, by outthinking and outlasting their opponents. The first match was against the Vekari, a race known for their incredible speed and agility. They were quick, with sharp talons and keen senses, making them formidable opponents in any fight. The human fighters, however, didn't try to match their speed. Instead, they relied on strategy. The human team, dressed in lightweight armor, used the terrain to their advantage, setting traps and using quick, decisive moves to outmaneuver the Vekari. By the end of the match, the Vekari were defeated, not through raw strength, but through superior strategy and coordination. The crowd was stunned. The humans, though outmatched in size and speed, had found a way to defeat a superior opponent. They hadn't fought with brute force. They had fought with their minds. And that was something no one had expected. Next came the Cavorn. These creatures were armored from head to toe, with razor-sharp mandibles that could slice through metal. They were a terrifying sight, and many thought the humans would stand no chance. But once again, the humans relied on their adaptability. Instead of meeting the Cavorn in direct combat, they used their environment. They led the Cavorn into narrow tunnels, where their bulk made them slow and vulnerable. The humans, nimble and quick, picked off the Cavorn one by one, exploiting every weakness in their armor. It was another victory, and the spectators were beginning to realize that the humans were not to be underestimated. As the tournament progressed, the human team faced more challenges. The Zorvax, with their unmatched physical power, were the next opponents. But the humans had learned from their past battles. They knew they could not outmatch the Zorvax in strength, so they relied on their intellect. They studied the Zorvax's fighting style, watching how they moved and how they reacted to different situations. It became clear that the Zorvax, though powerful, were not invincible. With precision and careful planning, the humans managed to land a series of attacks that wore down the Zorvax warriors. By the end of the match, the humans emerged victorious once again, to the shock and awe of the galaxy. The final match was a test of endurance and willpower, pitting the humans against a group of creatures known as the Rakshan. These creatures were massive, towering giants with thick, impenetrable skin and enormous claws. But the humans, though physically outclassed, fought with determination. They used their knowledge of the Rakshan's biology to target weak points and eventually wore them down. It wasn't easy, and the battle was long, but the humans never gave up. Their resilience was their greatest strength. When the final blow was struck and the Rakshan were defeated, the crowd erupted into cheers. The humans had done the impossible. They had won the tournament, defeating some of the strongest warriors the galaxy had to offer. The Zorvax, who had once looked down on the humans, were now forced to acknowledge their strength. The humans, standing victorious in the arena, didn't celebrate with arrogance. They didn't boast or gloat. Instead, they quietly nodded to each other, knowing that they had proven their point. Humanity's strength wasn't in their size or power, but in their ability to adapt, outthink, and survive. As the galaxy watched in stunned silence, one thing became clear: humanity was not to be underestimated. They had just proven that they were a force to be reckoned with, and their place in the galaxy had been forever secured. After their stunning victory in the galactic tournament, humanity's reputation spread across the galaxy. Every species had heard of Earth's victory, and no one could deny that the humans were a force to be reckoned with. The Zorvax, once skeptical of the humans, now watched them with a mixture of respect and wariness. Even the most powerful races were beginning to realize that humanity wasn't just surviving. They were thriving. But despite their newfound fame, the humans had not forgotten their purpose. They had come to the galaxy to learn, to explore, and to discover new worlds. There was still so much they did not understand about the galaxy, and they were eager to continue their journey. The next step in their mission was a dangerous one. A journey to the mysterious and unexplored region of the galaxy known as the Dark Reach. The Dark Reach was a vast, empty space, filled with ancient ruins and dangerous anomalies. No species had ventured into this region for centuries. The few ships that had entered it never returned. Some said the Dark Reach was cursed. Others believed it was the site of a forgotten war. It was a place where even the bravest of explorers hesitated to go. But the humans were different. They weren't afraid of the unknown. If anything, the mystery of the Dark Reach only fueled their curiosity. They knew the risks, but they also knew that the greatest discoveries often came from the most dangerous journeys. And so, they gathered a fleet of ships and set course for the Dark Reach, determined to uncover its secrets. The fleet was led by Captain Marcus Hale, a veteran of many space missions and the hero of Earth's victory in the galactic tournament. He was a man of few words, but his actions spoke volumes. He had a sharp mind, a steady hand, and a deep understanding of how to lead his crew. His ship, the Endeavour, was one of the most advanced vessels in the United Earth Fleet. It was equipped with cutting-edge technology, including cloaking devices, advanced sensors, and powerful weapons. But despite all the technology at their disposal, Captain Hale knew that the true strength of his crew lay in their determination and resourcefulness. As they entered the Dark Reach, the mood among the crew was tense. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before them, broken only by distant stars and strange, glowing anomalies. The Endeavour was moving slowly, its sensors scanning the area for any signs of danger. The silence was almost oppressive, broken only by the hum of the ship's engines. But it wasn't long before they encountered their first obstacle. A strange energy field appeared out of nowhere, surrounding the ship and preventing them from moving forward. The energy field was unlike anything the humans had ever seen before. It pulsed with an eerie glow, and the ship's sensors couldn't penetrate it. The crew was at a loss for how to proceed. Captain Hale stood in front of the control panel, his brow furrowed in concentration. He didn't like being in a situation where he didn't have an answer. The Dark Reach was full of mysteries, but this was something new, something dangerous. "This field, it's not natural," Hale said, his voice low. "It's something artificial, something built by someone or something. We need to figure out what it is, or we won't get any closer to the center of the Dark Reach." The crew worked together, using every tool at their disposal to analyze the energy field. They tried everything they could think of, jamming signals, scanning with different frequencies, and even sending small drones to investigate. But nothing worked. The field seemed to adapt to every move they made, preventing them from getting any closer. Hours passed, and frustration began to build. But just as the crew was about to give up, one of the engineers, a young woman named Tessa, had an idea. She had noticed something odd about the energy field. It wasn't completely uniform. There were small gaps, tiny holes in the field where the energy seemed weaker. "If we can get to one of those weak points," Tessa said, "we might be able to slip through. It's risky, but it's our best shot." Captain Hale nodded. "Do it." The crew worked quickly, adjusting the ship's course to aim for one of the weak points in the energy field. The Endeavour moved slowly and carefully, inching closer to the gap. It was a delicate maneuver, and one wrong move could send them spiraling into danger. With bated breath, the crew watched as the ship finally slipped through the gap in the energy field. For a moment, it felt like the entire universe was holding its breath. But as they passed through the field, the ship emerged into a new section of space, one that was even more mysterious and dangerous than the last. They had made it, but the danger was far from over. In the distance, they could see a massive structure, a massive ancient city floating in the void of space. It was a city unlike any the humans had ever seen. Its design was both elegant and terrifying, with towering spires and strange, glowing symbols etched into its surface. It was clear that this city had been abandoned for centuries, but the humans could sense that something still lingered within its walls. The city was a remnant of an ancient civilization, one that had long since vanished. Captain Hale knew that this was just the beginning. The true secrets of the Dark Reach were hidden within that city, and he was determined to uncover them. But as the Endeavor approached the city, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. Something was watching them from the shadows, something ancient and powerful. And with that, the humans had entered a new chapter of their journey. They were about to uncover secrets that had been buried for millennia. But would the truth they discovered be something they could control, or would it bring them to the brink of destruction? As the Endeavor approached the mysterious city, the crew could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. They had come so far, and yet, the true challenge was only beginning. The city before them was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its towering spires seemed to stretch into the void of space, casting long shadows over the cruise ship. The glow from the strange symbols on its surface flickered and pulsed, as if it were alive. Captain Hale stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the ancient structure. He could feel the tension in the air, thick with the unknown. They were not just entering an abandoned city. They were entering a place that had been untouched for centuries, perhaps millennia. Whatever secrets lay inside had been hidden for a reason. "Prepare for landing," Hale said, his voice steady but full of determination. "Keep your eyes open. We don't know what we'll find down there." The crew moved quickly, checking all systems to ensure the Endeavor was ready for the landing. The ship's engines hummed as they descended into the city, carefully avoiding the crumbling structures and strange energy fields that surrounded them. It felt like they were flying through a forgotten dream, surrounded by relics of a past they could not comprehend. The landing was smooth, but as soon as the ship touched down on the cold surface, an eerie silence fell over the crew. They had arrived. Tessa, the engineer who had helped them breach the energy field, was the first to unseal the hatch. The air outside was still and lifeless, but the ground was solid, made of a material unlike anything they had encountered before. It shimmered faintly in the low light of the city's glow. "I don't like the look of this," one of the crew members muttered under their breath. "This place feels wrong." But Hale simply nodded, as if he had been expecting this. "Stay focused. We came here for answers. We can't turn back now." The team filed out of the ship, armed with the standard gear, but they knew that no amount of weaponry could prepare them for what lay ahead. The city was silent, yet it felt alive in a way they couldn't explain. The walls were covered in strange symbols, glowing softly in the dark. There was a faint hum in the air, almost like the city itself was breathing. As they ventured deeper into the city, the crew couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every step they took seemed to echo through the vast emptiness. The silence was unsettling, broken only by the sound of their boots on the ground and the occasional clink of metal as they adjusted their gear. At the heart of the city stood a massive structure, a pyramid-like tower that seemed to pulse with energy. It was the largest building in the city, and it seemed to be the source of the strange hum they had been hearing. The crew moved toward it, their steps quickening as they approached the structure. It was clear that whatever this place was, it held the answers they were seeking. When they reached the entrance to the tower, they found a set of enormous doors, covered in the same glowing symbols that decorated the city. The doors were sealed tight, but as they examined them, they found a set of panels on either side, each inscribed with more symbols. It was clear that these symbols were not just for decoration. They were part of a puzzle, a key to unlocking the secrets of the tower. Tessa stepped forward, her mind racing as she studied the panels. "I think I can decode this," she said, her voice filled with both excitement and fear. "These symbols, they're a language, but it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It'll take time to figure it out." The rest of the crew waited anxiously as Tessa worked. Every minute felt like an eternity, and the pressure of the unknown weighed heavily on them. They had come so far, but the door to the tower remained closed. The sense of being watched only grew stronger, and Hale couldn't shake the feeling that they were disturbing something ancient, something that had been lying dormant for a very long time. Finally, after what seemed like hours, Tessa stepped back. "Got it," she said, her voice a mixture of relief and triumph. "The symbols, they form a sequence. I think I've unlocked the mechanism." She pressed a series of buttons on the panel, and with a deep, rumbling sound, the massive doors slowly began to open. The crew watched in awe as the entrance revealed a dark corridor leading deep into the heart of the tower. As they entered the tower, the air grew colder, and the strange hum grew louder. The walls inside were lined with more symbols, but now they began to glow brighter, almost as if they were reacting to the presence of the humans. It felt as if the city itself was waking up, as if it had been waiting for them. At the end of the corridor, they found a chamber, and in the center of the room stood a massive device, its purpose unclear, but it radiated an unsettling power. It was surrounded by more symbols, and in the center of the device, there was a glowing orb, pulsing with energy. The sight was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Captain Hale stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the orb. "This is it," he said softly. "This is what we came here for." But as he spoke, something unexpected happened. The orb began to glow brighter, and the hum in the air became deafening. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber, a voice that was ancient and powerful, one that seemed to come from the very walls themselves. "Who dares to awaken me?" The crew froze in place, their hearts pounding in their chests. They had uncovered something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. And now, it seemed, they had awoken something that had been sleeping for millennia. The voice that echoed through the chamber was unlike anything the crew had ever heard. It was deep, reverberating through their bones, and it carried an air of authority, as though it had been spoken by something ancient, far older than anything the humans could imagine. "Who dares to awaken me?" The voice boomed, sending a chill through the entire room. Captain Hale's heart raced, but he held his ground. His mind was already racing through countless possibilities. What had they disturbed? What ancient power had they awakened? The glowing orb at the center of the device pulsed faster, its light growing brighter with each beat, casting long shadows across the room. The hum had become deafening, filling the air with an almost tangible force. It was as though the very walls of the tower were alive, resonating with the energy of whatever power had been sealed away for so long. The crew stood frozen, their eyes fixed on the orb, unsure of what to do next. They had come here seeking answers, but now they had awakened something far more powerful than they had ever anticipated. The question was no longer what they could discover. It was whether they could survive what they had just unleashed. The voice spoke again, and this time, there was no mistaking the anger in its tone. "Foolish mortals, you do not know what you have awakened. This is my domain, and you are nothing but intruders." A strange energy rippled through the chamber, and the ground beneath the crew's feet began to shake. The walls trembled, as though the city itself was coming alive. The hum from the orb grew louder, and the glowing symbols on the walls seemed to writhe, as if they were reacting to the power being unleashed. Hale took a step back, his instincts telling him to retreat, but the door behind them had already sealed shut. They were trapped. "Get ready," Hale said, his voice steady but tense. "We don't know what this thing can do, but we need to find a way out." Tessa, the engineer, had been studying the orb and the device surrounding it, trying to make sense of the glowing symbols and the strange power emanating from it. She was the crew's best chance of figuring out what was happening. "It's some kind of energy field," Tessa said, her voice trembling slightly. "It's not just a weapon. It's alive, in a way. The power being channeled through this orb. It's massive. We're dealing with something ancient, something that was meant to be sealed away." Hale looked around the room. his mind racing. He could feel the pressure of time closing in on them. The longer they stayed, the more dangerous this place became. The energy was building, and soon it might be too much to contain. "How do we stop it?" Hale asked, his tone urgent. Tessa's face was pale, but she didn't hesitate. "I think we need to deactivate the device. But it's not going to be easy. The Ord's power is linked to the energy field, and if I try to interfere with it directly, it might trigger a chain reaction." Hale nodded, his mind calculating. "Then we need to buy you time. We can't let it power up any further." As the energy in the room continued to build, Hale motioned for the crew to spread out, setting up a perimeter around the device. They were out of their depth, but they couldn't give up now. The stakes were too high. Suddenly, the voice spoke again, this time with an eerie calm. "You cannot escape. This city is mine. And now so are you." The ground shook violently, and the room darkened as the power from the orb surged. The air became thick with energy, crackling with an almost unbearable force. The crew could feel it pressing down on them, as though the very atmosphere was alive with power. "I can't hold it much longer," Tessa shouted, her hands flying over the control panels, trying desperately to disable the device. Hale's mind raced as he looked around. He had to make a decision, and fast. The crew couldn't survive much longer in this chamber if the power kept growing. "Everyone, to the exit," Hale commanded. "We need to get out of here. Tessa, come with us." But Tessa shook her head, her face determined. "No, I'm not leaving. If I don't deactivate this, we'll never get out. The whole place will collapse, or worse, it'll explode." Hale hesitated, then nodded. He'd understood. The humans had already come too far to turn back now. Tessa's safety, as well as the rest of the crew's, depended on her stopping the device. He turned to the others. "Hold the line," Hale said. "We'll give her as much time as we can." The crew set up defensive positions around Tessa, ready to protect her at all costs. The tension in the air was unbearable as the power in the room continued to grow, threatening to consume everything in its path. Tessa's hands shook as she worked, her fingers flying over the controls, trying to make sense of the complicated symbols. She could feel the pressure mounting, the weight of the entire city bearing down on her. But she refused to give up. She had to get it right. The fate of the crew, and perhaps the entire galaxy, depended on her. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Tessa shouted, "I've got it." With a final push of a button, the energy field surrounding the orb flickered. The glowing symbols on the walls dimmed, and the hum in the air began to subside. The shaking of the ground stopped, and the oppressive pressure lifted. The crew let out a collective breath of relief. They had done it. The ancient power that had been awakened was now contained. The city seemed to fall back into silence, as though it had never been disturbed. But Hale knew this was only the beginning. The crew had survived the first test, but what they had uncovered was far more dangerous than anything they had imagined. The secrets of the Dark Reach were not just about ancient technology. They were about an ancient power that could reshape the galaxy. The silence that followed was almost deafening. The crew stood frozen in place, breathing heavily, their hearts still racing. The immense pressure that had filled the room moments ago had disappeared, and for a brief moment, they dared to believe they were safe. The energy from the orb had been contained, at least for now. But even in the stillness, Hale could feel that something wasn't right. The city, the tower, they still held mysteries, and perhaps dangers, they had not yet uncovered. "Is it over?" Tessa asked, her voice shaky as she wiped the sweat from her forehead. She had managed to deactivate the ancient device, but the relief she felt was short-lived. There was too much about the city, and about what they had uncovered, that still didn't make sense. "I don't think so," Hale replied. "This place still has secrets, and I'm not sure we've seen the last of whatever's lurking here." He turned to the rest of the crew, his face set with determination. We need to find out what's really going on. We can't leave without understanding the full picture. As the crew moved deeper into the heart of the tower, the quiet seemed to press down on them like a weight. The air was colder now, the energy from the orb having dissipated, but the oppressive feeling of being watched lingered. The walls around them were covered in more symbols, now glowing dimly in the dim light, but the further they went, the more they seemed to pulse with an unsettling rhythm. The corridor ahead opened into a vast chamber, much larger than any of the others they had explored. In the center of the room stood a massive pedestal, and upon it rested a strange, glowing crystal. The crystal was unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Its surface shimmered with 1,000 colors, and it pulsed with a light that seemed to call out to them. Tessa stepped forward cautiously, her eyes wide with wonder. "What is that?" "I don't know," Hale said, his voice tight with both curiosity and caution. "But whatever it is, I have a feeling it's the key to everything." The crew gathered around the pedestal, each of them staring at the crystal with a mixture of awe and fear. It was clear that this was no ordinary artifact. This was something ancient, something far beyond anything they had encountered before. "We need to take it," Hale said, his voice firm. "This could be the answer to all our questions. The technology here, everything we've seen, it's all connected to this crystal." But as soon as he stepped forward to touch it, something unexpected happened. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and the chamber around them seemed to shift, as though the very structure of the tower was awakening. The crystal began to glow brighter, and a low hum filled the air, vibrating through their bodies. Before anyone could react, a voice, deep and echoing, filled the room once again. "You dare to take what is mine." The voice was different this time, even more powerful than before. It came from all around them, not just from the crystal, but from the very walls of the tower. The air grew colder still, and the glow from the crystal intensified, casting strange, shifting shadows on the walls. "We do not seek to take what is yours," Hale called out, his voice steady but filled with resolve. "We came here seeking knowledge. We only wish to understand." A deep, rumbling laugh echoed through the chamber. "Understanding. You cannot comprehend what lies before you. This crystal is the heart of the Dark Reach. It is the power that binds this place. And now you have awakened it." Hale's mind raced. He had known there was more to this place than what met the eye. But now, as the voice echoed in his ears, he understood the true scale of what they had discovered. The crystal was not just a relic. It was the source of the Dark Reach's power, the very core of the mysterious region they had entered. This was no abandoned city. It was a living, breathing entity, and they had disturbed it. The ground shook again, and the light from the crystal intensified, almost blinding. The crew staggered back, but Hale stood firm. He knew they could not leave without understanding the truth, without uncovering the final secret of the Dark Reach. "We didn't come here to destroy," Hale said, his voice now ringing with authority. "But we will not leave until we have answers. What is this place? What is the purpose of this crystal?" For a long moment, there was silence. Then the voice returned, softer this time, but filled with an ancient sorrow. "This place was built to protect. The crystal was never meant to be taken. It is a remnant of an ancient civilization, one that perished long ago. They knew that their power would one day be misused, and so they sealed it away." Hale's eyes narrowed. "And now it is yours to control." The voice seemed to hesitate before answering. "I am the last of my kind. I have been guarding this place for eons, waiting for those who would seek the truth. You are the first to come so far. Perhaps you are the ones who can carry the knowledge forward. Perhaps you are the ones who can use it for good." The crew exchanged uncertain looks. The revelation was both humbling and terrifying. The power of the Dark Reach was vast, too vast for any one race to control. The crystal was not a weapon to be wielded, but a responsibility to be understood. Hale knew that they had to be careful. The knowledge they had unlocked could change the course of history. "We will take what we have learned," Hale said at last, "and use it wisely. The galaxy is changing, and we cannot let this power fall into the wrong hands." The voice seemed to fade into the distance, leaving a quiet stillness behind. The light from the crystal slowly dimmed, returning to its soft, pulsing glow. As the crew stood there, looking at the crystal one last time, they knew their journey had only just begun. The secrets of the Dark Reach were no longer a mystery to them, but they were far from the only ones who would seek its power. The galaxy was vast, and other forces would undoubtedly come for what they had uncovered. With a final glance at the crystal, Captain Hale turned to his crew. "It's time to go. We've learned what we came for, but this is far from over." The crew left the tower, the weight of their discovery heavy on their shoulders. They knew that the true test was still ahead, facing the galaxy with the knowledge they had gained, and ensuring that the power of the Dark Reach did not fall into the wrong hands.